The Electoral Commission in the DRC has announced that voting is continuing today at polling stations that encountered delays yesterday, but 5 opposition candidates have rejected that decision and are calling for fresh polls by a new team of electoral officials. For more on this, let's now speak to SABC News correspondent Chris Ocamringa, who is joining us from Kinshasa. Chris, good morning. Thank you so much for making time for us. Tell us about the polling stations that have opened this morning, but also why the opposition are disagreeing with the elections continuing today.
Well, we are at one of the polling stations where very many people came very early but were not able to vote because of the delays, and there's no activity happening here. There's no voting, but there are a number of other polling stations across Kinshasa where people, started voting very late. According to the DRC law, voting is supposed to start at 6 a.m. and end at 5 p.m. Kinshasa time. But there are places where by 4 p.m. voting materials had not yet arrived. And so it sparked a lot of anger. People started damaging the electronic voting machines and other, ballot papers in that area. And the Electoral Commission decided to extend the voting for those particular areas where voting started very late, and they have said it's going to happen the whole of this day, Tuesday, from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. And 5 opposition candidates, like you mentioned, have already come up and said they have rejected that idea. They're saying under the electoral law of the DRC, it's clearly stipulated that elections are supposed to be held for one day. The head of the Electoral Commission in the DRC, Mr. Denis Kadima, does not have the power to extend, this election. So they're saying this is a sham election. They want fresh polls and they want a new team to organize this election. This is something that has raised fears of, violence across the country, because some of these opposition candidates like Martin Fayulu and Denis Mukwege are very popular. They are among the leading opposition candidates and they have very many supporters across the country. So some of those supporters who missed voting on Wednesday will not, heed the call of the Electoral Commission to vote today. And they have said they are not going to accept the outcome of this election. So it has set the stage for, some tension across the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Yeah. And has there been any responses yet from Denis Kadima, the head of the Electoral Commission, with regards to these allegations that have been made, and also, as you've just indicated, the argument that the electoral laws of the country do not allow for an extension?
Well, so Mr. Denis Kadima issued a statement yesterday saying that, this is for the good, it's for preventing the disenfranchisement of Congolese people. This is something that they're doing to kind of allow people who missed voting because of the logistical challenges that they encountered. So he's saying he's doing it for the good of, having an encompassing system where every Congolese who registered for this election can vote. He did not mention about the electoral law, but he was saying that he's just doing this to ensure that people who have been complaining about the delays are given a chance to vote. And so that is the position of the Electoral Commission. But, the opposition members have been rejecting it. They had earlier been calling for this election to be postponed, because they said there were clear signs that the Electoral Commission was not prepared, but the Electoral Commission insisted, and so they're saying that this was a plan to carry out some fraud in these polls.
Yeah. Was there any explanation from the Electoral Commission as well with regards to some of the equipment that wasn't working yesterday that led to some of the delays? And do we know whether this morning at all of the equipment in all of those polling stations actually opened on time?
Well, they did not give clear details about why some of these equipments were not delivered on time. They just said they encountered logistical challenges. That was the statement that they gave. And they said that they're doing everything possible to ensure that all those equipments, the voting materials in the areas that encountered delays will be delivered in time today so that people can go and vote. So they said they're going to do everything to ensure that all the people registered on the voters list vote this time round.
What are the observer missions saying about the election process so far?
Well, some of them have not given any official communication. We're expecting a press conference tomorrow from the Carter Center and other electoral observer missions here, like the SADC and the African Union. But from what we heard some of them discussing, they were not happy with the way the conduct of the elections, because this thing has been planned for a very long time, and it was well known that the starting time for polling is 6 a.m. It's supposed to end at 5 p.m. So they were wondering what really caused the delay, because the Electoral Commission had been assuring them. They held meetings before the elections happened with the head of the Electoral Commission, and they assured them that they are ready, they are all set to conduct this elections across the 26 provinces of the DRC. So they were not very happy with all the delays and the claims about some polling electronic voting machines not having cables and being faulty. They were very, very disappointed with that. We are waiting for their official communication anytime soon.
Okay, just a final one. In terms of the announcement of the election, of the results themselves, when can we expect those? And also, will this particular delay that we've seen yesterday also have an impact on the deadline to announce those results?
So according to the electoral calendar, the provisional results are supposed to be released on December 31st. And many people are very eager to wait for what the outcome of that election. But from what happened yesterday, it's clear that these delays will have an impact on the release of the provisional results. Already we have heard some leading opposition candidates saying that they will not accept the outcome of this election because of the delays that happened and all the other issues that happened around the elections yesterday. So there's likely to be tension. International observers have been calling on both the government and opposition members to ensure that they conduct themselves in a very peaceful manner and talk to their supporters to desist from any kinds of violence, which has clearly shown signs that it might break out in some parts of the DRC.
Yeah. And of course, the issue around the M23, a big one around the eastern parts of the country. But do we know if there are any plans, at least to find a solution to that particular aspect? We will be having the discussion with our international news editor in the next short while as well. But I'd like to hear from your end as well. What are you hearing in the ground?
Well, the Congolese government, the authorities in Kinshasa, have rejected any kind of dialogue with the M23 rebels. They are saying that is a group that is a proxy of neighboring Rwanda, and they're not willing to talk to them. They have, protested that their country has been invaded by foreign forces. M23 has captured swathes of territory in North Kivu province, and there are two areas, Masisi and Ruchuru, where voting is not able to take place because of the M23 occupying that area. So the government here doesn't want to have any talks with them. And M23 have said that if the government doesn't want to have talks, they are going to form their own government, essentially meaning they'll break away from Congo. And that has created a lot of tension. And it's been a major campaign issue in this election. People calling, for the election of a leader who's going to unite this country and end that insecurity in Eastern Congo. The international community and members of regional blocs like the East African Community have been calling on both sides to seek a political solution to this crisis. But it looks from the talk from both the government and the M23 that they're determined to resolve this through a military solution, which will have serious consequences, not just for the DRC, but the entire Great Lakes region.
Thank you so much, SABC News correspondent there, Chris Ocamringa, joining us from Kinshasa, where it is day 2 of the voting continuing there in the country after delays with the opening of some of the polling stations yesterday, as well as the delivery of the equipment that are used for these elections.